President Lee Jae Myung will be departing for Beijing this Sunday for a summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. For more on the South Korean leader's visit to China, we have our correspondent Kim Bo-kyoung here in the studio with us. Bo-kyoung, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Dami.
So President Lee Jae Myung will be having a steep visit to China starting this weekend. What's known to be on his itinerary?
Right, so his visit will start this Sunday, that is January 4th. And after staying in Beijing for 3 days, he's going to travel to Shanghai before returning home on Wednesday. Now in Beijing, he's going to hold a summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping and have a state dinner. The reason why he's traveling to Shanghai is to mark the historic significance of 2026. It marks the 150th anniversary of the birth of Korean independence hero Kim Bo-kyoung, who was a key leader of the independence movement during Japan's colonial rule from 1910 to 1945. He was also the president of the Provisional Government of the Republic of Korea located in Shanghai, which also marks the centennial anniversary of its establishment. President Lee is also going to take part in events to promote partnerships between the country's venture and startup sector companies.
Now, Bo-kyoung, it's only been about 2 months since President Xi visited South Korea's Gyeongju on the sidelines of the APEC leaders meeting and held talks with President Lee. Could you tell us what President Lee's visit to China hints at this time?
Right, so we need to first note that President Lee's visit to China is the first one for a South Korean leader for more than 6 years since former President Moon Jae-in's visit in December 2019. Now, experts are saying that the Chinese leader's state visit to South Korea and a reciprocal visit taking place just 7 months after President Lee's inauguration itself shows that bilateral relations are improving rapidly. Now, Chinese state media too, while citing experts, has said President Lee's visit would mark a new starting point for bilateral ties. For example, one expert at Shanghai University was quoted by the state-run Global Times as saying that President Lee's visit symbolizes a new beginning from a new starting point, while adding that bilateral ties will enter a phase of stabilization and recovery. Given that the tensions between China and the U.S. are still lingering after the tariff war that took place this year, one expert I talked to underlined that this shows the ties between the two are of great importance.
The summit hints at the restoration of bilateral ties, which had been stalled for some time, and that the strategic cooperative relationship between South Korea and China is very important in the context of global geopolitics.
And I'm sure there will be many items on the agenda for the two leaders to discuss. Bo-kyoung, what could they be?
Right, so mainly the follow-up measures, perhaps, to implement the 7 MOUs that were signed between the two leaders during the previous summit. And the expert that I talked to said that instead of focusing on the sensitive matters, the two leaders are likely to tap on the economic cooperation. Take a listen.
The leaders are likely to discuss further accelerating the second phase of the Korea-China FTA negotiations and move beyond the previously stalled framework of cooperation and expand collaboration not in traditional industries of the past, but in more future-oriented industries.
For those not familiar with the FTA negotiations, the two countries had previously signed the FTA in 2015 and reached a limited agreement on opening the service and investment sectors. No consensus has been reached so far, but if Presidents Lee and Xi can conclude the second phase of the FTA negotiations this time, the scope of trade that was limited to manufactured goods and agriculture products could further include services and investment sectors such as finance, telecommunications, legal services, and culture. Also, although the experts said it would be a bit difficult for Seoul to discuss North Korean issues with Beijing, still, eyes are on whether they could talk about denuclearization of the Korean peninsula and whether China will explicitly include such language in its official statements. The meeting itself has reignited hope of China lifting its restrictions on Korean culture content as well, so we would have to wait and see how things unfold.
Definitely, especially what will be included in the official statements. Bo-kyoung, thanks for coming in tonight.
Thank you.